Hey guys, it's me Zilla, and on this Kaiju Assault video, we're going to be talking about my favorite tier, Tier 2. Tier 2 is an interesting tier because it's not exactly super powerful, but it's not weak by the slightest. The best example I can give for them is any monster in the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise that are a 4-star monster or 5-star monster. And they're not powerful, they're not weak, they're just right in the middle. They're a very good choice for most people who really want to get into the game and they don't want to get one-shotted with 1 tiers and they don't want to like use too many of their points while they're playing. So I'd say tier 2 is probably the best when it comes to that. Now, let's get into the best in class as we have in the first video. Now, the monster with the most health is obviously the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. This is the first Godzilla you'll see in the game if you're going through all the tiers going up all the way to the last tier, with this Godzilla having 925 health, having the best health of this class. Also having a pretty good attack with his melee and heat beam both at 375, his grab at 75, and having a slide kick at 250. However, if an opponent is grabbed, it adds an extra 150 damage, which is pretty nice. Now, the best attack output as well as options is kind of a tie between a lot of monsters. These monsters being Jet Jaguar, Barragan, Scorpina, and Shell Shock. Jet Jaguar having 800 health, having his melee at 300, laser beam at 350, and the attack that really just gets them all together is his uppercut, which is at 400. All the other monsters that I mentioned all have a similar attack, which has 400 damage. He also has a grab that has obviously 50 damage, as we all know. Scorpina, obviously having his 850 HP, and having his Claw Blast, his Boom Sword, Tail Sting, and Teleport, being 350 damage, 200, and 400 damage respectively. Barragan, who has 700 HP, his fire of 400, melee at 300, nasal ram at 350, and having a burrow. Shell Shock's another interesting monster, having his HP at 750, having a bat of 250, Shell Shock of 400, and has his traffic light. Now, these are all very interesting monsters, so let's get into some of their specialties. Starting off with Scorpina, being that Jet Jaguar has no special abilities to speak of, Scorpina has his Claw Blast, which is considered a projectile, his Boom Sword, which on a hit, you may repeat this attack against another Kaiju, which is pretty nice, so you can get 200 damage on 2 different Kaiju. His Tail Sting, which only has 1 use, with 400 damage, obviously being his highest damaging attack. The target cannot attack next turn. Miss does not count as a use. So that's the thing. If you keep missing with Tail Sting, you always have that one opportunity to hit it, but once you hit it, it's gone. He also has his Teleport, which is a desperation move. You remove Scorpina from play. You may bring Scorpina back into the game at any time. For each turn Scorpina is not in play, Scorpina heals 150 HP. So the fact is that he can't go above 850 HP. However, you can bring it back pretty good and healed, which is pretty nice if you have him and pull him. Barragan obviously has his Burrow, which removes Barragan from the field for 1 turn and heals him for 350 HP. He can only use this 2 times as indicated by the 2 next to it. Now, Shell Shock has his Traffic Light. His Traffic Light, before rolling to hit, pick red or green. Green, all targets attack gain Berserk, which is 100, and the damage reduction is applied to total amount from attack. Red attacks target Kaiju and all adjacent Kaiju. Treat any damage hit as grabbed. This does not place Shell Shock in a grab. The green effect is removed if targeted by red effect or if Shell Shock leaves play. You cannot use this attack next turn. So that's a very interesting attack, and it really helps a lot if you get green or if you get red. Also, his Shell Cannon is a projectile attack. So obviously he only has 2 uses of it, so you have pretty much 800 damage to deal if you hit both of them. Now, we're going to talk about Godzilla, and Bachelor Larva. These are both really interesting monsters, and Godzilla, or as most people know him as Fake Godzilla, is probably one of my favorite monsters in the game, having a bar minimum attack of 350 with his melee and his heat beam, and Bachelor is pretty much the same, having 275 for his beam and 250 for his ram, and having the webbing, which is not considered a grab, but it puts monsters in a grab-like state. However, it's their Reveal Mecha and Metamorphosis abilities which really sell these monsters. Because, at Desperation level, they both transform into Bachelor Imago form and Mecha Godzilla. These are both tier 3 monsters and will be gone over in the next video. Next is Gauss and Zilla Jr. Moving on with Zilla Jr., we've obviously seen his ability displayed by his father, the original Zilla. However, he's obviously a tier 2, being that he has a heat beam, unlike his father, but he's pretty much the same monster. However, it's really nice if you pick him because you'll always be familiar with the ability. Gauss is another monster with an interesting attack as well as an interesting ability. His Sonic Beam, with 350, Damage by Sonic Beam cannot be reduced by effects or abilities, which is really nice, so you always get a constant 350 damage. However, his regeneration is a very interesting ability, being that Gauss heals 100 HP at the end of your turn, which is really awesome, so that you can go from 500 HP to 600 back to 700. So really, Gauss is a monster to watch out for. Now we're going to go on to two monsters who really don't have special abilities per se, but they have special effects added to some of their attacks. We'll start off with Psychor having his 800 HP, his Tendrils, which have 125 damage single, but they can do it 3 times, so you can do the math yourself. His Pinchers, which is 125 times 2, however, if both hit, the target is grabbed. Obviously, he also has a standard grab as well. So you can get more damage off by landing both Pinchers, but you can also do a standard grab if you want to. Moving on to my second favorite monster of this tier, Gayet. Gigan with his 750 HP is pretty reasonable, having his 2 times slash with his 250 damage, his Saw, which is a 300 instant, but also you need to have it grabbed, and Saw may only be used on the target currently grabbed by Gigan, so obviously you need to go to a grab into his Buzzsaw, which obviously that's 350 damage altogether, which is awesome. But it's also very similar to his Ray Beam, so really depends on what you want to do and how you want to play it. King Kong is another monster I want to talk about. He doesn't have any special abilities per se. With only 850 HP, that's pretty reasonable. And his Rock Throw doing 250, his Electric Hands doing 400 if you hit both of them, his Melee of 350 and a Grab of 100. He's okay. Definitely a reasonable monster, I'd say. And pretty good if you pick him up. Titanosaurus is another good monster. He doesn't have as much health as Kong does, only having 750 HP. However, his melee with a 350, his tailwind of 100, his boxing skills of 250 each, and a grab of 50 makes him a reasonable monster as well. Another monster of a similar HP is Megalon, having his Drill, Napalm, Beam, and Melee, which is a really good attack options. However, it's not the most out of any of the monsters here. However, his Napalm is treated as projectile, which is nice, and his Drill is done 2 times, so you can get a lot of damage off with his drills. Now, another monster, similar to Zilla Jr., being the secondary version of another monster, is Final Wars King Caesar, having Melee, Double Kick, Slash, and Grab. Melee having the most damage of 300. And with Double Kick, if both attacks hit, add 200 damage. So it's not assured if you get that extra 200 damage off, so Melee is more consistent. He also has 650 health. Also, lastly, out of these monsters that aren't very special, but have a lot of uses in terms of just simple abilities, is Yongri. With 775 HP, he has a Fireball of 375, his Claws 225 each, a Grab of 75, and a Melee of 300. He's also, obviously, we all know, the second version of Yongri that appeared in the movie Reptilian. Now, on to the more unique monsters. We'll start off with Ziggurat, having 850 HP, one of the highest of this tier. He has his Razor Fins, which do 125 times 3, so get it off 3 times. And if the first attack is an instant hit, all the attacks become instant hits. So with moves like Distraction from lower tier monsters like Mini or Mogera, it's going to be an instant hit. And because of that, you can get all of those off, which is really nice to pair this with a lower tier, which I'll explain in their strategy. He has a RAM of 300, but he also has his Paralyzer Ray as seen in his film. The Paralyzer Ray works like this. Target is treated as a grab. This Kaiju is not considered any grab. That Kaiju does not roll to break free during their player's next turn. Paralysis Ray cannot be used in beam battles. So pretty much it's like a grab. However, Ziggurat can keep fighting and he's not considered stuck in his grab with the other monster. Now, another monster is Paralyzer Ray. He doesn't have as much health as Ziggurat, only having 700 HP. However, he has a Ram at 100, his Horn Beam of 300, his Melee of 225, and his Power Gain, which is a very interesting ability, in that Paralyzer gains 50 HP, its attack gains 25 more damage, and Paralyzer takes 25 less damage from attacks. These increases are permanent. Damage cannot be reduced below 75. So that's really nice. He's a very good buff monster, and if you pull him, he's very interesting because if you keep powering up, he's going to be quite the nemesis on the battlefield. Another interesting monster is Pexter. Pexter has 700 HP, similar to Paralyzer. He has his Claws at 150 each, his Peck of 300. However, he has an interesting move with his Beak Barrage being 75 damage. However, it can be performed 4 times. He has his Toxic Tornado. Toxic Tornado attacks each of any opponent's Kaiju for 250 damage minus 50x, where x equals that Kaiju's tier. So pretty much you just have to multiply and understand the tier listings. So obviously we all know the tiers of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you guys can all do the math because I am terrible at math. Now, in terms of newer monsters, here's one of the newer monsters from the 2014 Godzilla movie, Muto. Muto has his grapple. It's 50 and it's instant. This attack made this turn against the targeted Kaiju is a hit. Sorry. The next attack made this turn against the targeted kaiju is a hit. So pretty much once they're grappled, you hit them. It's pretty much similar. It's similar to Distraction. He also has his EMP pulse. Roll a dice. That dice becomes the new military counter. All mecha kaijus are considered grabbed if you roll a 5 or 6. So obviously we all know what electromagnetic pulses are, and this EMP short circuits out mecha kaiju. So your Mogeras, your Mecha Godzillas, your Mecha King Ghidorahs, they're all susceptible to this ability. He also has Call, which before any attacks are made in game, you may trade in monsters from your team equal or greater in cost to draw a Muto from the tier 4 pile. So obviously we'll talk more about the other Muto once we get to tier 4. Another really wacky monster here is Guy with 600 HP, a melee of 300, his I-Beam at 350. He has his Multi-Blast, which is 125 damage times 3, and it cannot be used in beam battles. However, he has this interesting ability with his main eye. If defeated, replace Guy with Main Eye. Main Eye has 200 HP and cannot attack. If Main Eye is not defeated after 2 turns, remove Main Eye and return Guy to play with 300 HP. So that's the thing, is that Guy is a monster to watch out for. Even though he doesn't have as much HP as other monsters within his tier, if Main Eye is left alive on the battlefield and not targeted by your opponent, you can bring Guy back, and obviously his multi-beams and his I-beams do a lot of damage, and so does his melee. So he's a really good technical monster if you want to play technical. Next is Tao Long. Tao Long has his Feng Melee, which does 250 damage. Roll again and add 200 damage if your roll total is 7. So that's really awesome right there. So that's an extra added 200 damage, making that 450, which is pretty nice. He also has his Lightning, which does 25x. You roll 2 dice. X equals the roll total. Targets with bad Fang Shu are instantly hit and take double damage and may target up to 4 separate kaiju. We'll get to Fang Shu in a moment. We also have his Recollite, which rearrange the position of any kaiju in play. So obviously, when you put down your kaiju, when you move, they're all put in that direction, and however you played your kaiju is always how you'll play them each turn. Now, onto his interesting ability, which is Fang Shu. Target a player and roll a dice. Count left to right among the player's kaiju spots. Choose an effect for that spot. Bad 2 is now an odd number, or good owner may re-roll a die for any actions a kaiju in that spot takes. May only have 1 active on each player. So obviously Fang Shu works in that it helps boost his Fang Melee. And the Fang Shu is pretty much like a luck aspect in terms of like how the monster is affected. Now, onto the last monster is Rita's loyal companion and minion, Goldar, with 850 HP. He has a sword, which is 150 times 3. You may add the damage of another of your kaiju's sword attack hits the total damage dealt as long as 1 hit. So it's pretty much a compounded attack, which is pretty nice. He has his grab of 75, his plasma blast of 325, and his attack is a projectile. And he also has his teleport, which is a desperation move. You remove Goldar from play. You may bring Goldar back into the game at any time for each of your turns. Goldar is not in play. Goldar heals 150 HP. So the fact is that so a lot of monsters in this tier had that comeback in stage. In terms of this, you want to play really tactically. So if you, which actually, I'll just go into how you play with this tier. This tier works well on its own. However, I recommend playing with the highest tier of tier 5 and playing with the lowest tier of tier 1 as the best ways to accomplish things, because with tier 1, there's a lot of monsters here that if you hit one, you hit them all. So using monsters with distraction like Mini and Mogera helps a lot, as well as if you also have bulky monsters that tank hits while you leave monsters out of play so that they can heal while your one big tank is getting targeted. They can come back with more health, making you even more of a nemesis, as well as kind of a tricky player to take out if you use this technique properly. And obviously, as I stated, this is my favorite tier, and I like using a lot of the monsters in the tier. Gauss, Fake Godzilla, and Gigan, respectively, are my favorites to play within this tier. So, if you guys are at G-Fest and I pull these monsters, well, I know how to play with them. But that's all. See you guys.